It is 7 o'clock on Monday, March 6th, 2023. I will call this meeting of the Norton Finance Committee to order, and I will take a roll call of attendees to start off. Kevin. Looks like he's not here yet. Okay. Paula.
Here.
Steve. Steve had let me know he probably was not going to make it, so no surprise there. Trace.
Here.
Thanks. Sandy.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Cody.
Here.
And Zach.
Here.
Great. And I am here. So the first thing I wanted to do is welcome our two newest members, Trace and Paul, who have joined us since our convening in the fall. We welcome you and feel free to ask any questions that you may have of this group. It's a lot of wealth of knowledge here. And then also wanted to thank Amy for her 6.5 years of service to this board. We are going to miss her and her presence, significant presence. I invited her to come tonight. Unfortunately, she is away and had a work event, so she's not able to make it and hear how appreciative we are of her, but I told her I would say it anyway. Without further ado, I think it's time to start. Mr. Units?
All right. Welcome to the new members, and no pressure on Bonnie, but I think Amy did a great job as chair. Appreciate all the work she did.
Yes, she did.
Just before we get started on the budgets, if I can share my screen. Which it doesn't seem to be letting me. Can you see that?
Dan, yes.
So you have the governor's first proposal on the cherry sheet in your packet. And just to give you an idea of how it breaks down. So the total estimated receipts is $17,421,200. And off of that, we take the estimated charges for state and county expenses and MBTA. That's $2,022,125. Then the school choice receiving tuition, which goes directly to the schools, $1,329,474, and the public library, the $46,558 goes directly to the public library. So all said and done, the net for appropriation is an additional $98,956 more than we had last year. So just explanation, the school choice receiving tuition, that's an increase of $105,806, and the libraries, $6,107 increase. And the charges, it's an increase of $38,622 from last year. So you had the direct pass-throughs total $111,913. And you have a revenue and expenditure sheet, still very rough, and don't panic looking at it yet. We're still working on it. We haven't put in the budgets yet. That's just based on an assumption of 3%. So we'll continue to work on that, and every 2 weeks we'll be providing you updates on that. Any questions on the cherry sheet? If you have questions later, you can just email me, and I'll answer them for you.
It's great to get them out now. Probably someone else has the same question. And to our many viewers, it is incredibly entertaining information.
All right. Then to go into the budgets, the first budget is data processing, and let me share that. Did my screen switch to data processing, or do I have to go out and come back?
It did not switch.
Okay,
I see the same thing.
let me, okay. Let me try and get rid of,
Just want to note that Kevin Bouguet, you are here. I heard a rumor you were here. Yes, you are here. Hi. Welcome.
all right. Can you see the data processing?
Yes.
So the data processing is made up of part-time wages, $43,700. Radio repairs, $13,500. Equipment repair and maintenance, $12,400. Professional services, $290,000. Telephone communications, $72,000, and that's all phones in the town, other than the schools. Seminars and conferences, $1,500. Additional equipment, $35,000, and that would be for any needed equipment through the year, for a total data processing request of $468,100. And as part of the data processing, I'll show the other section of that. So this is the breakdown of the professional services. Cybercom, that's the radios, repeaters, satellite receivers, etc. And that is $12,406.80. That's all the service contracts for that. Equipment repair and maintenance, $12,400, and that's made up of the fire alarm box, alarm maintenance, Metropolitan Telephone, which is the telephone system we have for all the town phones, and Ocean State Signal, which is for overhead and pole signal lights that the fire department has. Payment we used to use, the police department does not use that anymore. $3,900 is our Adobe licenses. Civic Plus, that's our town website, $13,821. Dropbox HelloSign, which we use a lot more since the pandemic started, that's $2,880. Full Circle Technologies e-permitting, $38,250. Greater Boston Police Council, $275. That's so we can be part of um, their consortium when we go out to purchase vehicles. Harper's is fire and police department's online payroll system, 5,000. Home electronic help, that's the annual maintenance contract for 400 for the key scan control remote systems in the buildings, and the interior and exterior cameras is $600. And the cameras at the fire department and the town hall, 1,000. The other 600 is the police department. Live scan fingerprint, for the police department, the annual maintenance, 3,300, and another live scan program, $200. Those are required by the state.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
So Mike, just a quick question on that. I see that that's 3,500. Is that proportional to usage or anything like that throughout the state, or is that a flat 3,500 per city and town?
Chief Clark is on. Chief, can you respond to that?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So that's just a flat rate. Every single person that gets arrested or charged has to be fingerprinted. And we also do that for, say, peddlers permits and other things like that. License to carry applications. So it's used quite a bit.
Understood. I'm just, is that 3,500 the same as, say, the city of Boston pays, or is theirs much more? Like, is it proportional per population or anything like that?
So our system is a live scan system, and that's the fee that we pay. I'm not sure what other communities might have.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair?
Is that Zach?
Yes.
Ready?
Mike, what's the plan on the permitize? I know we talked about that in capital a little bit. The town's looking to move to new software, and there's money requested in capital, and you have it kind of in both budgets.
Yep.
But what's your plan on that?
So we're still working on that, and that quite possibly could be coming out of this budget.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So Island Tech, Cradle Point, $200. Lexipol, this is the fire department, online policies and procedures, regulatory compliance, $9,300. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Mike,
Cody.
I'm just wondering, the cost column shows 9,200. There's a couple of these that I'm going to ask about, because there's the totals don't seem to add up on the subtotal. I'm not sure why that's different.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Thank you, Cody.
Thanks, Cody.
Local Intel Economic Development, it's an annual subscription, 3,500. Cell phone investigations, I'll have to look at that one too, because it doesn't add up correctly. That's Cellbrite replacement for the police department. And then our services with MX Consulting. The wireless access, all buildings, backup and recovery of emails, StorageCraft is the maintenance on that. Virtual backup, physical backup and recovery, fire department, AMView Pro backup and recovery, and wireless access at the Chartley Fire Department.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
just a question on MX Consulting, because we've got obviously the subscriptions, but then also the agreements was the next item. How often is that bid out?
It hasn't been bid out in a few years.
Is there a reason behind that? I know like conversion can be costly.
Right. It's just been a matter of, the conversion and what we'd have to go through in order to change everything and what the costs would be for that.
How frequently is that looked at?
I don't know. I'll check with Charlene on the last time that she looked at it.
Chief, I hear someone speeding down my street. Can you do something about that?
They're all tied up at other calls, but we'll send them when somebody's available.
I don't know what they're doing, but I could still hear them like a mile away.
And this is just a continuation of MX, the antivirus, the spam filter, encryption technology, Dropbox, CGIS, which the police department uses.
Madam Chair. Mike, this is another one that the subtotal isn't adding up.
Okay.
Unless I miscalculated it.
Yep. Thanks. I'll look at that. NFPA for the fire department, online subscription for all fire codes, fire prevention. The near map, this is the imagery for the assessors department, replaced pictometry. And PMAM Corporation, that's police department, human capital management platform, and online policy manual management. Brave Mobile, that's for our alert system to notify residents of situations. Target Solutions or CrewSense, that's for the police department. And CrewSense for the fire department. Payment to Wells Fargo, this is for the large plotter printer up in planning, the planning and conservation area that we use to print out large plans. And then the financial software is Data National or Zobio. And these are yearly subscriptions to that.
Mike, that's another one that the subtotal isn't adding up.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
Is that Kevin?
Yeah, Mike, what have we thought about? I mean, it looks like this is just an expense, $3,700 for a printer. We looked at buying one versus whatever this is, rent lease.
We are buying it, and this is the payment for the purchase. It's financed through Wells Fargo.
So it's listed with OpEx.
Where I don't know where you're seeing that. The Wells Fargo 36-inch large format plotter.
So this is finance, this is capital, and this isn't just pure expense then.
Right. This is a lease, the lease purchase option. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep. And telephone communications for all the phones and all the wireless phones for police and fire. And then office supplies and the conference expenses. And this is just a little breakdown on the annual upkeep. That's for any printers, laptops, cell phones, hardware, all the hardware in town, iPads, anything that may need to be replaced during the year.
Mike,
Yep.
just a question on that. The telephone communications in yellow, it's showing 72,000. It's 66,800 on the subtotal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. Is 72,000 supposed to be capturing everything under there, and then
It is. So I'll have to check the math.
all right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And that is it for data processing.
Any other questions? Everybody's very quiet. So in the past, in the past few years, I should say, what we as a board have determined we feel makes the most sense is to hear sort of all of the presentations about each department and then take votes after that point so that we have a good sense of kind of the full picture of our municipal budget before we make any decisions. I just want to make sure I hear from anybody that feels any differently than that. So now would be the opportunity to speak up.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
just to be clear, we're still asking questions and stuff as they go through it, but just holding the vote until after.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
now is definitely the time to ask questions. It's also a good time to ask for more information. I mean, kind of like you did when you pointed out there was some errors, because then Mike can bring, or whomever is presenting can bring that information back to us, corrected, or the additional information. Sometimes it's presented at the next meeting. Sometimes it's emailed to us in between. But it's definitely a good time for questions. Now is always a good time.
And Madam Chair, I haven't made any recommendations yet, so I'm going to present what the departments are looking for, let you see everything that they were looking for before I do any of my recommendations to come back for a vote.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
And so the next item is communications, and this is our payment to SEMREC for $300,000. That is all we have for our communications.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody?
can you just explain what SEMREC stands for?
Sure. Yep. Southeastern Massachusetts Regional Emergency Communications Center. And that is our dispatch center for Norton, Foxborough, Mansfield, and Easton.
A+, Mike. Nailed it.
I figured I was going to mess it up.
It's easy one to mess up.
And
Any questions about
I will
SEMREC?
say SEMREC just received a national award from the National Town Managers Association. So congratulations to them.
Mike, on SEMREC, can you remind me or us how costs are allocated between the towns?
Mm-hmm. Right now, everyone, actually this year, Mansfield and Foxborough, they started sooner than Easton and Norton did. So they're paying $450,000 each this year, and we're paying $300,000. So what they did when SEMREC was first established, they looked at the number of calls in each of the four communities, and they were virtually similar in size of calls, the number of calls. So everything was at the beginning was split right down the middle, four ways, evenly. And we are trying to, there's a few different communities that are looking to come into SEMREC, so we'll be looking at that in the future.
So Mike, that according to the sheet there's been no outlay yet. When do we actually pay that?
We should be paying that soon, within, by the end of the month.
Okay.
Yep.
Further questions about communications?
Madam Chair, quick question.
Sure, Paul?
Like you said, other communities may join. Would that lower our costs?
That is the hope, that it will lower the cost. And next is the police budget, and I share my screen again, and Chief Clark is on.
Hi, Chief.
Good evening.
And Brian, you just tell me what you want to see.
So is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No problem.
All right, can you see that?
We can.
Should have a
Yes.
patch on it.
Yep.
All right, so I'll just kind of roll through this. This is a budget document that you should have, kind of a table of contents. It was recently revised, just due to we put a couple items that used to be in municipal building into this budget, so it did get revised. Basically, this page 3 shows you the increase over last year's budget of $160,392 that's being requested. So, of that, salaries is probably the bigger increase. I will tell you that there are, when I did the budget, I included a 2% increase. There are 13 employees that get step increases this year, 4 employees with longevity increases, 5 that receive additional vacation increases, and there's additional hours for the records administrator in here as well. So, next is my salary for the year. And then overtime's outlined into different buckets for vacation, holidays, comp time, miscellaneous, training, sick, investigations, personal days, and court. I did include in the packet the reasons for overtime. That's always kind of a question on why we need overtime. So I included a sheet on what overtime is used for. Longevity pay, this is a contractual obligation for both myself and the assistant. Shift pay, if a sergeant or a lieutenant is off a shift and a higher patrolman is in charge of that shift, they get what's called an OIC pay, which is the difference between the sergeant and the patrolman's pay. Fringe benefits is a benefit for the deputy and myself. Incentive pay is a contractual obligation for education and stipends. Injury pay, we usually set aside $20,000 each year. I can tell you that we're probably going to double that amount this year. We've had an officer out since June, and he remains out, and he's going to need another surgery. It's an injured on duty claim, so I don't see him returning this fiscal year. Special police, we only have a few special police left. Police reform does really not allow us to hire any more special police. There is no more reserve intimate academy. So this request is $20,000, which is when a special police officer works a shift when a patrol officer is out. Matron is when we have a female prisoner, we call in a female matron to watch the prisoner. And then expenses. Expenses are relatively the same from year to year with very little increase. Repair and maintain equipment, repair and maintain vehicles. Vehicles have been in pretty good shape. We actually have had 2 out for long extended periods of time this year though, but they've been well maintained, the rest of the fleet. The next one is repair and maintain buildings. This is the new to the police budget. This used to come under municipal building, and it's just the basically some contractual obligations that we have for Johnson Controls, our HVAC system. They do an annual inspection every year. The elevator, our yearly cleaning, and then we have to pay a couple $100 to the water and sewer for some backflow testing. Uniforms and clothing is a contractual obligation. Then professional services, telephone, there really hasn't been any change in any of these contracted services. Thomson Reuters is a investigative technology that we utilize. A digital forensic tool that we utilize, the lease of 2 copy machines, a radio communication for detectives, and then a app service that we use. The office supplies are self-explanatory. Outside services are basically when we hire somebody, we put them through a physical, a psychological, any type of hazmat cleaning that has to be done. We call it in a specialized company. If we ship a prisoner that's going to be held for a weekend to the House of Correction, so anything like that, prison meals come out of that. Educational supplies is just, some necessary books, training, and education materials for the department. Ammunition is kind of spelled out. There's been no increase there. No increase in investigation, meals and travel, and in-state travel. Training is if somebody goes to a class, professional development or otherwise, that requires this is for somebody goes to college and goes for a degree, they get reimbursed per contract. This year, we have a lot of officers, this fiscal year, we have a lot of officers that are out getting a education. With that, most of the department has at least a bachelor's degree, so there's about 6 officers who are going for a master's degree. There's a cost to that. This year, we've requested already like $35,000. I think we're going to need a little more, to be honest with you, but this $15,000 is just kind of a baseline request. The police academy, we have to. Question.
Is that Cody?
Yeah. I just had a question on contractual for the training and educational assistance. Is there, within those contracts, is there any requirement or tying them to the department for a certain period of time so that we're not training them to go off and work in another town?
So that's a great question. So actually, to your point, when we look at the police academy, we do have them sign basically a waiver information that if they leave or if they transfer within 5 years, they have to pay back the cost of the academy. Under educational assistance, I believe that the only thing in the contract is if you go for a Juris Doctorate degree, you have to stay for 5 years post graduation. And the training is something that happens yearly. I'll give you an example. There's officers going to an investigative class this week, going to driving while stoned in a couple of weeks. There's a cost to those classes. So that's where that training fee comes out. The SROs are going to a conference in a couple of weeks. It's $350 for each person. So that's where those come out. But if you go to, if the educational assistance, if somebody's going to a degree program, that's where that funding source is utilized.
But there's nothing tying them to the town for that cost other than a JD?
Correct. I can double check, but that's the only thing that sticks out in my mind. We haven't had anybody that has left, that has utilized it and left, to be honest with you. Not in my tenure here anyways. The police academy we've had a couple people and they've reimbursed us for it.
Yeah, I think we discussed that last time I talked to you.
Dues to professional organizations, there's just a slight increase for a couple of areas that have been increased this year. And equipment is the final category. Anytime we purchase new equipment, it comes out of that. So this is the overall budget sheet that shows you all the allocated funding there. We put a department wage and salary sheet together that basically shows you what the allocated funding is for everybody this year, this coming fiscal year. And then you can see in the blue, we tie it into those slots that I just went through. This is a wage and a benefit schedule that shows you everything that's outlined. The yellow is where people have increased in the last year. This is our organizational chart. I did include a couple other things too. This is something that some departments are starting to do. It's good overview on, although I don't necessarily like the terminology of SWOT analysis, but it tells you, what we see as our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and I truly don't like that word threats. I like the word challenges more, but it just gives you a little overview that you can read at your leisure. Vacancies. I've done this over the last several years because it seems like no matter what, there's always somebody leaving. Obviously in 2021, we got hit pretty hard, losing 3 people. We had a recent resignation. So there's always people leaving. And I've always said, every year we should hire at least one person because we're going to need it at some point in time in the very near future. So I had an officer make this. I actually saw something similar to this in a magazine. I thought, oh, this is a great way to show where we are and where we probably should be. So our current level right now today is 33 officers. We have one vacancy from a resignation. I mentioned that one's out injured. We usually, our shifts are manned. Our manpower is 6 people on a shift. It accounts for overtime, so we don't backfill everybody when they're out. We have a 4-person minimum. So we're running the 4 to 12 shift, the midnight to 8 shift right now with just 4 officers. So every time somebody's out, we have to fill it. And then lastly is something that, we probably have to have a further discussion with the school department, but we have 2 full-time school resource officers. And, there is a thought for a need for one to handle the elementary schools. I did send two officers to training in the fall, and they're just having some FaceTime in the elementary schools. They work on the day shift, so they're able to pop in and out. It would take some pressure off of the 2 full-time people who are primarily at the high school and the middle school. But that's kind of where I think we should be. So other than that, I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Zach.
Question, I'm not sure it's for Chief or for Mike, but because it falls at the various departments. So your budget, I don't know, sick time for an officer or a firefighter or somebody at the town hall. They don't take it, they roll it over and roll it over. If they don't take it in that year, does those funds go back into the general fund? Because then when they retire, we have separation expenses. So how does that all work year to year versus when they leave?
You want me to answer that, Mike? So basically the allotted amount in the overtime budget for sick time is if somebody's out sick and we need to backfill them. So we need to replace them to have an officer working. Each officer receives a day and a half of sick time a month, and they can accrue unlimited, but they can buy back half of whatever they may have at the end. So in my budget, there is no allotment for buyouts. I will only put something forward to a town meeting if I know somebody is retiring and I know what their amount's going to be. So right now I haven't allocated for any retirements at this point. It's not in this fiscal budget.
So, Chief, so let's say, to put it easy, the whole year, let's say nobody calls in sick. We have a perfect year. What happens to that sick fund? Does that go back into the town's, is that a turn back? Or what happens to those funds?
Yeah, so it could be a turn back. I mean, I've allocated $29,250. I mean, if nobody was sick and if the budget was maintained, yeah, that could go back as a turn back.
Because we always see when somebody retires, whether it's the fire department, police department, the town, well, we have separation expenses of $100,000 for all their sick time and vacation time, or whatever they didn't use. If we're allocating that year to year, and then we get a big, 6-figure number when they're in, how does that all work out? As I'm trying to figure out.
In this budget, there is no allocation for a buyout. there's none. If somebody, comes in today and says, hey, I'm retiring July 1st, I will have to put together what I anticipate them being owed and then put it on a town meeting warrant to set that money aside. But it wouldn't come necessarily out of this amount. Now, I say that, has it in the past? Yes, because we might pay them out. We've had 2 deaths, right? So we did pay them out of this budget, and whether or not that money gets put back in the budget, it may or may not, but I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't allocate for buyouts in this budget.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cody.
So is probably a better question for Mike. Is there, and I think Zach, what you're getting at is, are we carrying like a liability, like on a balance sheet year to year, where we're accounting for how much accrued sick time is on the books for those people? Because obviously, year to year, you only submit the budget for what you expect to happen during that year, but where are we tracking that within the overall view of the town's budget, how much we have sitting there that could, in theory, hit it at one time?
You're on mute, Mike.
Amy wasn't here to tell me that. So the town accountant keeps track of all the sick time. And as Brian was saying, if he budgets overtime based on how many people he thinks are going to be sick, how much sick time he's going to have, and it doesn't occur, and there's money left over in his budget, it closes out to free cash.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody.
One other question for Mike. Do you know if and how much we have had to pull from free cash to cover overtime budgets that were underestimated?
I do not. We've usually covered it with reserve fund transfers at the end of the year.
Without having to go to free cash?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you that in the last few years, we haven't requested any.
Yeah.
I think it comes up more on fire than it does on police.
But I will tell you that this year we've been hit hard again. We've had several surgeries this year. I told you that the injury account that's going to double. So this year, Zach, I don't know if I can do it. Return any sick time money this year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Joe.
Chief, can you explain the difference between an accredited police department and a certified police department? And is there an annual fee? I didn't see it in the list, but is there an annual fee that we have to pay to keep that up?
There is. The fee is it's under the dues to professional associations, and it's labeled as Massachusetts accreditation. It's $2,300. It's just a smaller amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Standards that one would receive. So if you're certified, you only have to hit so many standards. When you're accredited, you basically have to double those standards. And we're actually in the process of going through accreditation right now. We actually have a mock assessment tomorrow, and then March 28th and 29th, we'll have a assessment team come in here. I'll actually send you guys, I sent out a notice to the town manager and select board. I'll send you out the notice as well about accreditation and what we're going through. I'll do that when I get off.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach, go ahead.
So Chief, in this budget, do you have, are you budgeting one extra new recruit or no?
No, this is basically a level services budget as suggested by the town manager. So there's no additional staffing in here.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody, go ahead.
Just on that same point, Chief, you said we've got one that just resigned. If we have to backfill, then you've already got an account for, or a line item in the budget for, fees associated with the academy, if we have to pull from the academy.
Well, it's not that simple, I guess. So we've expended all our monies for the academy this year. We've sent basically 3 people to the academy this fiscal year. So there's actually a deficit in that account. So what will happen is that sometime this month, I'll requisition a list to civil service to get a new list to try to backfill that position. But it won't happen before July 1st.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Joe?
So Mike, Chief mentioned that your recommendation was to keep level. He showed us how he feels that, ideally we'd add a couple of officers. What is your thinking on keeping that level?
Well, right now, as you saw from the draft of the revenue and expenditure sheet, we're over $1 million short. And so right now, I don't see it as a possibility.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Chief Clark,
Yes, sir.
I read some stories of some departments that have lost some seasoned officers because of the new standards. Have we had any issues in Norton?
No.
And that's a testament to your department then. Truly.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Clark? Chief, that's a very convincing looking police station background behind you. All right, well, you may be off the hook. Last call for questions.
Thank you. You can certainly reach out to me anytime. I know that I've always offered new members, if they want to come down and discuss the operations and do a ride along or something, you're more than welcome. So
It's true. Thank you.
thank you.
Coming.
Next up is the fire department, and Chief Simmons is on, and he will share his screen.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, welcome. Thank you. Let me just get this up here for you.
I think Brian needs to stop sharing first.
So good at sharing.
Can y'all see that okay?
Yes.
Do I need to expand it? There we go. Is that better? All right. So good evening. I'll try to do the same thing that Chief Clark did. I'll just try to hit on some of the highlights where you might see some of the bigger increases. And I'll echo his comments as well. If anybody has any questions at any time, you're more than welcome to stop by and ask questions. And I'll definitely get back to you if you have any questions you want to reach out for. So probably one of the biggest increases you'll see here is salaries. So we're in contract negotiations right now, and I've anticipated a 2% increase. In addition to that, we have 19 step increases, and I believe we also have like 13 members increase in vacation time allotments as well. And we also have our SAFER grant that some of you may remember that we utilized to hire 4 personnel that expires next fiscal year. So we're responsible for close to 45% of those salaries in addition to that. So I know I was speaking with the town manager. We had talked about possibly increasing the contribution from the ambulance receipts, another $100,000 to help offset that increase. Okay. As far as overtime goes, we're requesting a little over $49,000 increase. Overtime, we've been trying to hire people, and same thing like Chief Clark had said, it's been very difficult. not only trying to hire people, but also trying to retain them as well. So I've called for paramedic list. I had nobody sign up on the list. And now we've been hiring basic EMTs, which we've found some great candidates. Unfortunately, we'll have to pay for them to go to paramedic school. And we also can't count any of the new hires to staffing until they graduate the fire academy. And as I've told some of you before, that process takes close to a year, sometimes even a little bit more. By the time that we hire them, they go through the the onboarding process with the physicals, physical agility tests, get an academy date. That's usually about 6 to 8 months out right now for them to get into the academy, 3 months to go through, and we're looking at about a year before we can actually count that person towards manpower. So we've lost 2 people to other departments, unfortunately, recently. We have 1 person in the process of disability retirement right now. We have 1 person out on paternity leave. And we've also had another 2 people leave just through retirements recently too. So we're trying to fill those positions. So like I said, we have our 13 members increase in the vacation staff, which creates an additional need for overtime. In addition to that, we've kind of transitioned to a younger department over the past maybe 3 years or so. And it's kind of great news that a bunch of people are having babies, but they've been taking paternity leave as a result, and that also taxes the need for overtime. Just this year alone, we're about 54 weeks of paternity leave that we have on the books, which is quite a bit. So the next contract, it's looking like Juneteenth holiday will be added. That's approximately another $8,000 for that as well. So, okay.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, Chief.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good. You mentioned that we lost a couple of firefighters to other towns.
Yep.
You may not know the answer to this, but do you feel like that is because of pay issues, or like just they were closer to their home, or?
Yeah, I think. Let me turn that down. Sorry about that. That's a great question, and quite honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. Both of the people that left went to departments that were their hometown community. Okay. So where they grew up and they had a personal attachment to that community. Both of those communities also paid a little bit more than we do as well. So I'm not sure which was the biggest factor. So I think it's kind of a combination of both of those factors. On a positive note, we over the past probably 4 years, we've also recruited and got about 5 people from other departments to come here. So which is a really good sign, and I think says a lot about our department and the direction that we're going to. So we do have a lot of positive things going for us as well. So but it's just really tough when we lose somebody like that, because like I said, it takes so long to replace that person. And that whole time we're down that position, and we're trying to maintain an absolute minimum of 8 people on duty to maintain adequate coverage for the community. And when we lose those people, it stops our ability to drop down. So if we have, say, 10 on duty, we're trying to fill to 8, we can have 2 people off on sick or vacation or whatever the case may be, and not have to incur any expense in overtime. But as those people on the shift drops down to 9, only 1 person can be off before you have to fill overtime. So right now we have 3 shifts that have 9 people on them on paper, and we have 1 shift that has 8. So on that particular shift right now, if anybody is out for any reason, they have to be covered. So it unfortunately adds up pretty quickly.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that we gained some people. It sounds like we're actually net positive, so that makes me feel better.
Yeah, that's me too.
Excellent poaching skills.
We're trying.
Thank you.
No problem. So the next one is incentive pay. That's I'm anticipating I've already anticipated in that some contractual increases, even though they're in negotiations right now. So I'm just projecting that'll increase by about $50,000. That could go up or down, depending on how they settle with negotiations. Okay. For training, I'm requesting about $9,100 increase. That's based on a 2% salary increase. There's a bunch of mandates through the Office of Emergency Medical Service, which is one of them is Nero's Law. I'm not sure if you've heard about that, but it's actually a great thing. It's going to allow us to take care of injured police dogs in the back of the ambulance. So that's an awesome thing. How they're going about it is a little bit tough. They're making a veterinarian come in and teach the classes for us. So we have to hire a veterinarian. We have to pay people overtime to come in and do the training. And from what I understand, they're not going to allow people to work on the ambulance unless they've had that training. So it's going to be tough enough to get over the initial training, but then if we say hire somebody, 2 months from now, we have to figure out how we're going to get them trained without putting on a whole class for 1 or 2 people. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And we also have just recently mandated active shooter training that's required by the Office of Emergency Medical Service as well, which is a good thing, but it does cost money to do that. So we still have our dive team. We've been increasing the members in the dive team, and we're currently in a regional dive team with North Attleboro and Easton, and that's working really well. We have a lot of new officers, lieutenants, and captains, so we've been doing a lot of training with them, and also Department of Public Health and Office of Emergency Medical Services requiring skills labs training every year for us to practice skills that we don't utilize that often on calls. So it adds up a little bit. Okay. Any questions so far? All right.
Madam Chair,
Who is that?
Madam Chair.
Is that Paula?
Hi, Paula.
Go ahead.
Hi,
Paula
Chief.
who? No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Quick question. So the SAFER grant, you said we
Yep.
would be responsible for 45% of the salaries of 4 people for the next fiscal year?
Yep.
No, how much is that?
You have to give me a second to pull that together.
Sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to put you on the spot. I was just curious, so you said you could
Yeah.
use ambulance receipts. I remember you mentioning last year there was another grant.
Yep.
CPE grant?
Very
Are we
good.
able to-
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. Yep. Yeah,
Gold
CP.
star.
Yeah, community public expenditure. It's through Medicare. We've been doing really well with that for the past 3 years. I think the first year we got about 140,000. Next year it went up to about 170. And this year I think we're projected to get just slightly over $200,000 for that. So that's been a huge help to us, and that's going right into the ambulance receipts account, which is also going to help us offset the expense for these additional personnel once that grant expires. So. Yeah.
But it's still only gonna cover like a small percentage of it, or?
It should cover at least half of it right now. If we're
Oh,
looking
okay.
we're looking at about $194,000 increase, and we're looking to take another $100,000 to help offset that, for this year. The other part of those increases is just regular, I'm anticipating a 2% salary increase with a collective bargaining agreement, but again, that could be more or less depending on what they settle on. The other reason for the increases in there, like I said, you have 19 people with step increases. It mixed into that as well. So, minus that stuff out, and that's exactly the SAFER figure. So, just like Chief Clark had mentioned, our budget is for level service, even though we'd love to request additional staff and we could desperately use them. This is just, level service, maintaining the same amount of personnel that we currently have.
Yeah, it'd be great to maintain Charlie open for sure.
Yeah,
so.
we're trying our best. So far, it's been working out okay, but it's going to be a little bit challenging, I think, towards the end of the year. With all the paternity leave and stuff, it's and people out on injury, it's kind of adding up. So
Thank you.
no problem. All right, where were we? Okay, so we're just moving into operating expenses. Some of this is just electricity, looking to go up $1,000 in that. Natural gas, about $750 increase. Repair and maintain equipment, we're requesting an increase of $2,250. We use that. One of the big expenses out of that is calibration gas for our gas meters. We have about 7 different types of gases that we monitor for. Some of them are very expensive, and we're required to calibrate those meters weekly to maintain it, that they're accurate. So, in addition to that, consumables and cost for tools and small engine parts comes out of there. A lot of our equipment now is battery operated. We do have one set of our jaws of life and cutters that are battery operated, and a lot of our power tools are battery operated as well. So. Repair and maintain vehicles. This is always an interesting one here. So we've averaged about $49,000 a year over the past 3 years, and we've been progressively trying to increase that. This year we had got $42,000. As we speak, we have about 2,100 and just a little bit more than that in there. So we're going to probably run a deficit in that towards the end of the year. However, with that being said, some good news would be that we did enter into municipal agreement with Foxborough and Easton. Both of their fire departments employ their own mechanics full time, and they're also taking on fire departments from other towns to repair their apparatus. So we've signed into agreements with them. We utilized them for the first time about a couple of weeks ago. It worked out really well, and their shop rate is about $90 to $95 less than we were sitting on our apparatus previously. So we're hoping to kind of rein that in a little bit and save a little bit of money in that area. So we're doing what we can to try to save, you know. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
Chief, why is utilities in this electricity and gas? Isn't that normally in fixed and shared expenses?
this is for Station 1 right now, for the Charlie Fire Station.
Yeah, I got that, but wouldn't that go into the fixed and shared expenses, Mike, with everything else?
No, it never would be in there before. Charlie's always been out separate. And I know we have tried this year to put the expenses where they should be so that people can get a true understanding of what the cost of each department are. So rather than paying paying police expenses, for example, out of the town hall maintenance budget, would be spreading them out into each of the departments so people can see the true cost.
Good. All right. Let's move on. The uniform allowance is just to cover contractual obligations. Seminars, we're looking for $27.50 increase in that if we could. And that's just for members to receive specialized and expert training that can't be provided for, like the local fire academy level. We're just trying to keep a well-trained fire department and also account for succession planning. And like I had mentioned earlier, we have a lot of new fire officers and stuff too. So, educational assistance is to cover contractual obligations. What I'm anticipating will be some increases in that area, so that, you know, if that doesn't happen, that'll go down a little bit. If it could also go up a little bit too. So,
Chair.
what was it? Hi, Cody.
Hey, Chief. Just a quick question on the seminars and educational assistance. How much is that running currently?
Currently,
Before
yep.
we increase it.
Yep, stand by 1 second. Stay with me for 1 second and I can tell you exactly. Right now, we have about $1,500 left in that line item.
For seminars?
Correct, yep. To this point, we've spent $4,496 out of that line.
Do you have an idea of any upcoming seminars that they're going to deplete that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a 2-day fire prevention seminar coming up in Western Mass that we'll probably send at least 2 people to. And I believe there is also an arson investigation seminar. I think that's 2-day class as well that we'll probably be sending 2 or 3 people to as well. So we'll keep an eye on it, but there's a good chance we may run that into a little bit of a deficit this year. I just think that's really important to be able to send people for training to maintain a professional department, you know?
Yeah.
Answer your question?
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
Obviously we want to keep people as educated as possible and just making sure we're not increasing it for the sake of increasing it.
Yeah, no, not at all. We just a bunch of us just got back from a professional development conference in Worcester that was excellent. It was a 2.5-day long conference, and there was just a lot of national level speakers, people that used to be the White House Chief of Staff, Director of Homeland Security, Director of the U.S. Fire Administration. So it was a really high level. It was a great conference. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Madam Chair?
Kevin, go ahead.
Chief, I don't know if it's in here. I just didn't see it. Can you remind me, or what bargaining unit covers most of our requirements through the collective bargaining?
Yeah, there'd be the firefighters local 2678.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So the additional equipment, the big increase that you see here, and I guess this is kind of an option that you guys can decide upon. For the, you know, as long as I've been chief, and I know Chief Schleicher can probably attest to the same, we've been requesting the purchase of turnout gear annually through capital improvements. So it seems that it's just kind of been a reoccurring cost. And, you know, from my understanding, the capital improvements is technically not for recurring costs. We can make an argument to put it in either one, but I put it in here as a possibility of moving that into our operating budget. And if we decide to do that, then I would obviously withdraw our capital request for that same amount of money. Okay. All right. So that covers the fire budget. Moving on to emergency medical services. There's only a couple things here. One would be ambulance billing. We're requesting an increase of approximately $8,000. And that's, you know, if that's going up, then that's good news for us. Because that means that we're billed on a percentage of what they collect. So if that's going upward, it means we're collecting more money for our ambulance receipts, and we've been trending upward progressively. So that's a good thing. The training that you see there is just to cover the cost of sending these newer members that are basic EMTs to paramedic school. So, and I know somebody had asked Chief Clark previously, but we're also having all new hires into memorandums of agreement that regardless of whether we put them through paramedic school or not. So they're obligated to work for 5 years or pay the money back we invested in them. So.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cody.
Chief, on that, would that be, would you anticipate that would be a 1-year increase for getting the training on those paramedics to make EMTs, or is that going to be an ongoing increase year over year?
Yeah, no, good question. I'm hoping it's a 1 year. So as soon as we can hire them and send them through paramedic school and pay for that, if it's just going to be tied into hiring new personnel, right? So, you know, if we have a couple people right now that can retire next year. Like I mentioned to you earlier, we have one person that's in the disability retirement process. So I'm anticipating having to send 3 people to paramedic school next year. So that's where that comes from. So once we get up to full staffing, you know, hopefully we don't have to hire for a while, and that you would see a change that would go down if we weren't anticipating any hires the following year. Or for some, you know, hopefully we can start finding paramedics. That would be even better. Answer your question? Yeah. All right. Home stretch. This is an easy one. So this is emergency management, and we're just requesting an $800 increase just to maintain level service. Okay, let's scoot over to capital real quick. So for capital, we had requested $89,000. We have a new ambulance on order. I swear it's been for about 2 years that we've ordered it, and it's still not even being built yet. But that's just to cover the cost. We were able to get that ambulance purchased through ARPA funding. But this is to cover the cost from when we originally did that to the final price. It's kept going up and going up. So that's request to cover that, and also the equipment that goes inside of it. We requested $66,000 for a staff car, and we're requesting that to be an 80-20 split, meaning that 80% of that would come out of ambulance receipts and 20% of it would come out of capital. Jaws of Life and heavy rescue equipment, we were requesting $50,000, and again, that would be an 80-20 split request. Structural firefighting hose for $20,000, and then you see the turnout gear replacement in there. And again, if we decide to put that in our operating budget, we would eliminate that out of our request. And for really good news, we had originally requested $315,945 for new portable radios that we really need, and we finally just got awarded a grant for radios. And we entered into a regional grant application with Mansfield and Foxborough, and we just received word about a week and a half ago that we got awarded a little over $527,000 to purchase radios with those other communities. About 20% of that is Foxborough, and then the other 40 and 40 will be split between Mansfield and Norton. So we did request to leave $125,000 on that line for capital until we see how everything kind of balances out. And certainly if we don't need to use that, we'll just turn it back. Okay. And that kind of covers our capital. Any questions about anything? All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything?
Next is town clerk. And I'll share, she is here, and I'll share the town clerk's budget.
Hi, Lucia.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Chief Longhurst, it's your turn.
Excuse me?
Well, we welcome two chiefs. I thought
Oh, well, thank you.
just add you right in.
Here it comes. Okay. I think on the regular town clerk, the 161, there's not much for changes, up a little on seminars and conferences. That I want to start my assistant going to classes to finally get her certified. Purchases of services have gone down tremendously. I over budgeted on that purposely just in case of anything's coming from the state elections last year for the regular equipment in office. And I think that's about it on that. No more changes. I think the big changes are going to be in the elections. We're facing the presidential primary in March this budget year. Obviously, vote by mail is mandated, and that gets very costly, sending out just about 14,000 ballots. And for the help in the police and all your normal election expenses. I've upped on the town election costs because as of right now, it's still in legislature. It's looking like the town elections are going to start. They're going to have mandated vote by mail. So that's going to go up tremendously because of almost 14,000 registered voters. And that's going to have to be extra help coming into the office to help out. So, any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Hi, Lucia, how are you?
Good, Joe, how are you?
Good. So I have two questions. One is on the dog tags and licenses. I saw that was way over budget. So I was curious what happened and if you thought that was going to continue to be a large expenditure.
No, there's nothing budgeted for large. We now have 1 to 3 dog licenses, 1 to 3 year dog licensing. So in all honesty, I goofed and ordered too many, but I'm not budgeting for any because they're going to be used because they don't have to have the years anymore on them where we license up to 3 years. So that won't be budgeted for another couple of years.
Okay. My second question is on what did the special election end up costing us?
This past special election, I haven't gotten all the bills yet. I haven't received the bills for the ballot maintenance and the data cards from LHS. I'm going to say that election's probably coming in very close to 7,000.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more?
Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody, go ahead.
Hi, Lucia.
Hi, Cody.
On the vote by mail ballots, is there any offset from state or national level for those mandates?
Excuse me. No. What happens is on the mandates, the state basically they're going to pay for the cards, the mailings to go out. There will be one mailing in January. So would they mail? I'm sure you've seen them. You've received them, the little postcards. Mm-hmm. So when people send them back, they check off that they want a ballot for just the state or the presidential or for all elections this year, which 90% of them send them back for 90%. For all elections this year. So our costs the state will pay for that. The state pays for the state election ballots. I have to pay for the maintenance of the voting machines and the maintenance on the poll pads. And I have to get a lot of help in. I get about 6 people additional every day in there to help us because we're dealing with thousands.
That's just for the processing of those mail-in ballots.
That's the processing and helping mailing them out. And then they have to be, there's a lot involved with it all to, for counts and that, but the town elections, bear in mind that we pay for all costs. We pay for ballots. We pay everything on the town election. The state pays nothing. And I also would just like to say I went to capital planning for $11,500 for 2 more ballot machines and 2 more ballot boxes to help with the central facility processing tabulation. That is with all the mail-in ballots. When they all start coming back, we are allowed by the state to be processing those. And I want the extra machinery to help us process those. If we have to run them through during the course of the election, we'll be there till like 4 or 5 in the morning, just running ballots through. So having the extra machines to run the central tabulation facility is a huge help, will be a huge help. And they allow us to run those a week before the elections. We can start the live early voting and the central tabulation facility. We can start running those ballots through. But obviously, we do not pull tapes until the polls close.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Lucia? Well, thank you, Lucia.
Well, thank you all very much.
Good to see you.
Same here. Good night, everyone.
Night.
All right. Next up is inspections, and the building commissioner, Nick Iafredi, is on. And I'll
Welcome, Nick.
Good evening, everybody.
Good to see you.
You as well.
You pulling that up, Mike?
Yes.
We don't see it yet.
Nope. Give me a second. All right.
Okay. Again, good evening, everyone. So basically, the majority of our budget hasn't really changed. There's a couple things, 2 big items. We have, so for you that don't know the makeup of the department, it's myself. I have a part-time local building inspector who works Mondays and Fridays. I have 2 part-time electrical inspectors and 2 part-time plumbing and gas inspectors. Over the past 3 years, we went back and ran numbers, and I apologize, I don't have exact figures in front of me, but we've increased significantly on amount of inspections. So my plumbing and gas inspectors and my electrical inspectors are paid based off of inspection. Hence, we're asking for a $5,000 increase for each of those line items. Mike, I don't know if you can scroll down to, do you have that sheet where it shows employee?
Yeah, I do.
Salaries and wages? Perfect. So we were at 25,000 for each, plumbing and gas and electrical. So I'm asking for an increase of $5,000 for each of them, which would bring my budget up $10,000. Other increases are just salary contractual increases. And that's about it. Everything else pretty much stays the same as it was last year. We didn't really increase anything or didn't see the need to increase anything else other than that.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Question on, what I didn't see in here was any sort of income statement based on number of, inspection, fees and so on and so forth. But my question is more about, with the increase in inspections, how much of the fees are intended to cover the payment for the inspectors, and should we be considering raising the fees for inspections?
So great question. This has been kind of a topic over the last couple of months. And I think Mike in the past, so I've had the department for about 2.5 years. In the discussions with Mike in the past, it's been about a 3-year cycle where Mike's requested that we look into our wages or our fees to make sure that we're kind of middle of the road at or above average from other local towns. So I'm actually in the process of doing that now. From what I've seen so far, we're right where I would expect us to be. Over the past, let's say 2 years, our department has increased, I guess, I don't know the proper terminology, but we've brought in minimum of $200,000 increase each of the last 2 years compared to the year that I took over halfway through, let's say. So we're seeing an influx or an increase in construction, an increase in permits, hence the increase in need for inspections. I can get you those figures, Joe, if you want to. I can absolutely get those and get them over to you guys so you can see those numbers.
Yeah, I would be curious to see that. In general, are the fees intended to cover those costs and be net zero, or is that not the way that it's kind of figured?
So the way we calculate our electrical permit fees, plumbing and gas permit fees, the fees are intended to cover their inspection. So if there's a permit that requires 2 electrical inspections, that fee would absolutely take that into consideration, and then some for processing and so on, filing and so on and so forth.
Okay, so we would expect the income on the others, I understand adding the $5,000 per line item here, we would expect that to be offset on the income side.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach, go ahead.
Mike, do you have a number of what we took in for permits in the last year, ballpark?
Sure. So I can give you through December last year. Through December last year, we collected $370,357. And through December this year, $1,190,000.
Keep issuing permits. Fire up the presses.
Zach, to that point, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen what's going on around town. There's a lot going on around town. So we're very busy. And to be completely honest, if things trend, and I'm obviously not asking for it now, but if things keep trending in this direction, me and Mike over a nice warm cup of coffee may have a discussion about some other things, maybe bringing a part-time, giving some more hours to a part-time local or something like that. But that's at this point for another day. But we're very busy in that department.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
I'm not sure if this would be a Mike question, but the fees when they come in, those go towards the free cash, Mike, or are you able to dump them right into the budget as of the first of the year?
No, any money that comes in through fees is a general fund revenue receipt and would go, and anything in excess of what we had anticipated would be available when it's certified as free cash next year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Hey, do we do any kind of metric tracking or anything where, if, like, the number of permits and inspection goes up, you're kind of constrained and very busy on the resource side? Has our time to issuance or time to inspect gone up over time, where just thinking about wanting to be a certain number of days within getting back to folks, has the queue grown over time, where have we gotten any feedback that it's taking too long, or there's a backup of requests?
Did you hear him?
I think I got the gist.
No.
Yeah, so you were going in and out, Kevin. I don't know if it's your headset, but just so you know, hopefully he's going to answer the question you just asked. If he doesn't, I'm sure you'll let him know.
So I think I get the gist of that, Kevin. So I'm mandated through my codes to make a decision on the building permit within 30 days from the date that I receive all of the required or requested information that I'm looking for to review and process a permit application. The influx in applications in such hasn't hindered that timeline to this point. And like I said, so my assistant, my local inspector, works on Mondays and Fridays, and it actually works out good for those days because he comes in and he can get a ton of inspections done in those 2 days. And then obviously the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I don't want to say are tougher because I can still manage it. It's just, it becomes on me with workload in the office and then in the field. But I haven't got any reports or any, I guess for lack of a better term, complaints that we're taking too long with things. Does that answer your question? Awesome.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Cody.
Mike, just a question. That $1 million number you threw out, was that directly tied to building inspection permits and fees that are brought in, or do we keep tabs on where those fees are and I guess permit fees are coming from?
Yes, so I don't have the entire breakdown. That's all licenses and permits, so that would be building inspection fees plus any liquor permits, for example, that the town would issue, any other permits through the Board of Health, but the vast majority is, I can get you the breakdown, but the vast majority is building permit fees.
Yeah, the breakdown would be good because it would be good to know what how much we're offsetting and how much we're making off the building inspection and permits versus the other stuff.
Yeah.
We can run those numbers to Mike out of our department tomorrow, so it's separated from everything.
Any other questions?
Mike, do you want me to touch on, the permitting
Yes,
topic that we
please.
spoke about?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it was vaguely touched on earlier with data processing. Back in 2019, the gentleman that held my position before me, amongst some others, I believe, had implemented an online permitting system called Permitize, for the town that was supposed to include, 6 or 7 departments, to be operational online through permitting. And then other departments in town to have read-only or sign-off approval rights in review rights. In the past 2.5 years, give or take, of my experience with this, a lot of other department heads, including myself, have found it to be, I guess, lackluster at best. And the consensus is kind of across the board from us that have been using it. We were at the Capital Committee last week, I believe, and we had pitched a request to switch to another software. The technical support from the current program we're using now is essentially non-existent. We've asked, because there's been turnover in multiple departments in town and new employees coming in that weren't involved in the initial startup of Permitize, we've asked their staff and their technical team to come out and give us some personal one-on-one training within the departments so that we can use and utilize the software to its fullest extent that we're paying for. And we haven't received any of that. One of the biggest things that we see on our end is with the new software, which is called OpenGov, is that it allows us to modify applications, to add applications on the fly in-house, as opposed to having to send out a ticket to the technical team for Permitize, wait for them to try to understand the modification, send a draft back for approval or changes, and then get it back to them to make those changes, and then get it back to us for another approval before we can go live with that application. It's time consuming. It's frustrating to a certain point. And Kevin, to your point, would allow us to maintain, our timelines on processing, reviewing, and issuing permits as they come in, as opposed to falling behind. And it also, the new software would also track those deadline dates for us. Like I said, I have 30 days once I have all the requested information to either approve or deny the permit. So the new software would track those dates for us. It would send us reminders so that we could, stay up to speed and not fall behind on things. The big thing, obviously, is why we're all here, is that it does come with a cost. It costs more money. I honestly wasn't overly prepared to pitch this tonight, but the basic numbers are we're at about 38.2, I believe, or 38.5 for Permitize right now a year. We're paying, I think, about $4,600 for the select board to have an online portal, and they haven't had it in the 3 years that we've had this software. They still don't have it. The new software, the first year would cost us about $81,000. That would be a conversion from Permitize to OpenGov, and all the startup costs to be running and be live on the new software. And then every year after that would be a total of about $50,000. So it's about a $12,000 increase yearly. So, and I know it's a good chunk of money, and I understand, that's a big decision for us to make or to support. But I think the fact that it would make us in the town hall, it would help us be more efficient. It seems like from the public side that it's a heck of a lot more user-friendly, easy to deal with. So it would be an ease for the applicants as well. Any information anybody is looking for or would like on any of this is more than welcome to reach out to me. Or Chris Donner, who's on the meeting, has also been involved in going through the infant stages of seeing what this new software is all about. But I think from the town, all the department heads are wholly behind this. Some of them are usually before in other municipalities, so hopefully, if any questions, come across the board, we can answer whatever questions you have and see what happens after that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula, go ahead.
quick question. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Are we in any sort of contract with, what's it called, Permatize, that we'd have to maybe pay out to them if we broke the contract and went with a new software?
So we do have a contract. I don't control that contract. I think that goes through Charlene and Mike. I'm not sure what the dates are as far as, expirations, due dates for payments. That would be a Charlene question, or me and Mike could definitely look into that.
Okay.
But I think we're on a year-to-year basis with them at this point.
Okay. What's the name of the new software? I didn't get that.
OpenGov.
OpenGov. Do you know other towns locally that use it and
Yeah,
seen
so
success?
Yep. So there's about 104 different municipalities in the state that are using OpenGov. I can get you a list. I have a list at my office of other towns. I can absolutely give you a list of those so you guys can check it out. But I've spoken to some other towns that are on it, and the people in my position, those other towns, are very happy with it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody, go ahead.
2 questions. The first being, you mentioned, Nick, that the select board doesn't have access, like we're paying for access that isn't actually set up. Is that accurate? Is it just because it hasn't been set up, or it's just because it's not being used?
So they're supposed to have, the way I read the contract is they're supposed to have their own page. So their applications for a liquor license or special event parking permits. My assumption back in 2019 were that they were going to be online, just like building inspection services, building permits, board of health permits are currently, and they're not. Again, I don't know why this is the case. I know they've been working from department to department over the first 3.5, 4 years to get each department up and running and online. But I'm not, again, I didn't implement it, so I'm really not sure why that kind of is the last item on the list. But
So and if I could, we're holding that payment. We haven't paid for that.
okay, sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to false information.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, was if we have paid it, we should be able to claw that back. And then my second question is, I know not all permits have fees associated with them, but a lot of the stuff that you deal with, Nick, does. Would the cost offset, like we just talked about, the inspections offset, is it something that we could look into, like the total cost of each permit that's being issued? But open burning permits don't cost anything. That's just a tracking thing. We're never going to make any money off of that. But for everything else, is there, I'm all for making it easier instead of harder and for systems that work better, but this should be something that we can offset the cost, because the people that are applying for permits, the businesses and individuals, need the permit to clear through, registry of deeds or whatever. So there should be some opportunity there to pass through the cost from the ones that are actually utilizing it, right?
So anyone that issues any permits, Board of Health, Fire, Select Board, Planning, Conservation, every department has been instructed to review their fees and come back with suggestions on fees for the next year.
Do you have a sense of how many permits are issued every year? Because if we're talking about 20,000 permits and it's an additional 15,000 a year, I mean, $1 per permit doesn't seem like a lot to, like, if we're going to increase it by $2.50 or, something like that. It just seems like an easy way to pass through the cost on a better system if it's going to work better for everybody.
Yeah, so go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, I don't obviously have that with me, but I can easily get from each department what they issued in permits.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, Cody, is theoretically, the hope, I guess, from this side of it would be, that every year we're increasing the intake and the amount of permits that we issue. Every permit, right now, the way we calculate our permit fee, it's based off the cost of the project. We have a lot of commercial and industrial buildings going up right now, as you know. So those permit fees are significantly higher than your single family residential home, whether it's a new home or an addition. So sometimes, a permit for a new industrial building may so far supersede all the single family home permits we issue in 1 year with one building permit. And then again, we can't control how many permits we intake and process throughout the year, right? That's out of our hands. So I guess ultimately, the hope would be that if we're gonna jump to a new program, and that there's a way that we can absolutely offset a cost. But it's tough to say, yes or no, because we just don't know what's coming.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Zach.
Also, Cody, having listened to the presentation at the Capital Committee from the various departments, including Chris, and members of the planning board that are on the Capital Committee, it is an incredibly cumbersome program that really doesn't work. So across the whole town. So there will be efficiencies, I assume, if they get a program that works for everybody. What that is, how you quantify that is a different story. But hearing from everybody at the Capital Committee, this, it doesn't really even work for them anymore. So, there will be some efficiencies gained.
Thank you, Zach.
Madam Chair?
Oh, sorry.
Go
ahead.
I tried to talk over Zach. Sorry, Zach. So this is a question for both Nick and Chris, and it kind of goes to what Zach was saying. Like, how many hours a week are you wasting fighting with this program and or waiting for them to get back? Because, if it's 3 or 4 hours per week per issuing entity, that $12,000 per year gets made up really quick. So, can you just ballpark, like, how much time are you wasting on it per week?
I'll speak on that a little bit, Nick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, my friend. Go ahead.
One way to look at it, like we told the Capital Committee, we explained to the Capital Committee was, let's say, for an example, Nick gets a permit application on Monday morning, and they didn't include all documents required for their permit. Now that by the time they get those documents in, let's say that's not until Thursday, Nick's had another 100 applications come in. The way the current setup is, you actually have to dig through the pages of applications to find out what has been updated, because there's zero notification that it's been done. And it's to the point now where I tell all my engineers and anybody that's going to submit, please email me after you've done it, because this program doesn't let me know anything. So that would be one of the biggest things fixed with OpenGov. OpenGov is set up more like the home page, or the dashboard, if you will, has excuse my voice too, I'm losing it a little bit. It has a section right in the beginning that shows all your notifications. It's almost like an email setup. You come in, it's telling you what needs attention, what's been updated, who sent you a message. I mean, it's kind of within this century's worth of technology. It's pretty cool, actually. The one we're dealing with right now is color coded, and you've got to dig through pages upon pages. And for a colorblind guy like myself, it doesn't work out so good. But it's just, there's so many inefficiencies about Permit Eyes. It was a good idea, I guess, from whoever built the system, but wasn't very well thought out.
The biggest thing too is, whether it's $38,000 or $50,000 is a lot of money, right? So we as department heads are just employees in our specific departments. We deal with a lot on a daily basis. So from our standpoint, it'd be nice to have a program that works for us. Like Chris said, this program tracks all that stuff for us as opposed to us having to work for the software. I mean, I have well over 100 pages of permits when I log on to my dashboard with Permitize, and if I don't go back, you know, some of them could be like Chris said, because I see all permits: electrical permits, plumbing permits, gas permits, building permits, residential and commercial. So I have everything on my homepage. So you know, there may very well be 100 permits from Monday to Thursday. Yeah. And that first permit that came in on Monday morning could be 9-10 pages back. And if I don't get a notification, you kind of sometimes they get lost in translation. So I do the same thing. I ask people if they're going to upload something or give us a new attachment to give us a call or shoot me an email so that I get some type of a notification. But even to that point, the applicant shouldn't have to be, you know, secondhand working for the software as well. This is all supposed to be incorporated in that aspect of it. That's what we're paying for.
Yeah, I've heard complaints from members of the planning board as well. I guess the point was, yeah, $12,000 might sound like a lot of money, but if you know, if you guys are losing all that time because of the inefficiencies of the software, you know, you got to take into account the cost of your time. So
yeah,
to me, that's a strong argument in favor of switching.
Anything else?
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nick? Chris has been very patient. He's gonna get a cookie.
Nom nom nom.
Well, thank you, Cookie Monster. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Staying late.
Sorry,
So-
Chris, you had to wait for Nick to stop talking again.
Yeah.
You started it, Mike.
Part of that was my fault. I kept him talking for a long time.
No. Have a good night, everybody.
That's
Yeah.
just how he is.
Need parental
Bunch of blowhards around here.
All right.
I'm gonna stay and watch yours now and see how long you talk.
We won't let him talk very long because after him comes adjournment.
Yeah.
Oh, they lucky.
Not soon after, but after.
All right, let me share my screen so you can see the Board of Health budget. All
Okay,
right.
so looking
Hi,
at
Chris.
it,
Welcome.
how are you? Thank you.
Good, how are you?
Looking at our expenditures, we never really increase the expenditures if we can help it. We very rarely spend the whole thing, but we like to, well, some of it we kind of have to have in reserve, where, you know, like lab testing and that, because you just never know what we're going to run across. Salaries were a contractual increase calculation. Yeah, that's basically it. There really isn't a whole lot. I didn't change anything as far as my expenditures from last year. And then down on the public health, if you could scroll down a little bit. So we are still searching for a public health nurse. We haven't spent a dime out of their salary this year. Our public health nurse left in May. And so we've been advertising and interviewing and striking out quite a bit. A lot of it is a lot of, you know, older nurses. I don't want to be disrespectful, but let's say the seasoned ones that may want to settle down a little bit with a part-time job. Were basically worn out by COVID and they just wanted to get out completely. And then some of the younger ones that we've had in, the pay scale is below what they can work with. So it's been a struggle. I will say this with regards to that. I have a meeting tomorrow with the fire chief, the deputy fire chief, as well as the Mansfield fire chief. Town of Mansfield shares some of their public health responsibilities with EMS, I believe it is. And so between that and the fact that we now have a regional epidemiologist, which is being paid for by a grant for the next 3 years, we would be able to cover all services of the public health nurse. We're trying to look in different avenues here and be creative with the position because of the fact that it's just been a struggle to get anybody in, and we're not the only town out there that is having this trouble. The expenditures, I left the same on that one as well. We still, you know, even though we didn't have a public health nurse, we did purchase vaccination equipment as well as the vaccines themselves for flu and COVID as well. We had COVID expense as well, but most of COVID expenses were taken care of by state grants. So what you're seeing there for expenditures is mainly flu vaccine for town employees, as well as the students at schools that are in need of a flu vaccine. Again, I apologize. I've been sick over the weekend, so my voice is not all here. But yeah, aside from that, I don't look to increase. I'm almost considering the flu vaccine may go down next year because we've lost a lot of demand for it with CVS and Walgreens. We've lost a lot of the adult demand for it, so I'm starting to think that we may start backing off a little bit with that, but we'll see. So again,
ask you a question, Chris?
Sure.
Who administers? Is it the school nurses that administered the flu?
Yes.
And would they typically
Yeah.
do it, or the public health nurse would have done it, but we didn't have one?
They've always helped us with them. She would just be there with them, and unfortunately we didn't have one for. But Doreen Brown was awesome with helping me and taking the reins with that and making sure that we, all the documentation was done properly and submitted with the state. So I don't feel as though we really skipped much of a beat there. It's just that our past public health nurses would have been involved as far as giving the vaccines. So they were short one nurse basically. But Doreen said that everything went without a hitch, everything went smooth, and was, I was very appreciative of her jumping in and giving us a hand. And I look forward to her helping us again, even if we do get help, if we do end up getting help with the fire department. But again, we have that money in the salary in case we are lucky enough to get somebody in there. And if it doesn't work out and we end up using the fire department, I don't know if that money would be reallocated or how it works out, but we'll figure that out as time goes on.
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Zach, go ahead.
Well, that was going to be my question, Chris. You kind of touched on it. First of all, I don't think you're going to get anybody for $34,000 a year at what nurses are getting today. I think that's going to be open forever. So what can the fire department, I don't know what the exact function of the nurses other than vaccines, to be honest with you, but I'm not sure, can the paramedics within the fire department, assist,
So that's what we're looking at tomorrow. That's what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Again, when just at about the same time when our past public health nurse resigned, we had just signed an agreement with Mansfield, Foxborough, Sharon, Plainville, and Easton to start a regional public health collaborative, and it's being funded by a grant through the state. One of the positions that we were able to bring in was we have our regional epidemiologist, easy for me to say. And she is covering all of those towns. She has been doing all of our contact tracing, all of our case investigations as far as communicable disease, foodborne illness, and that type of thing. So she's been doing quite a bit of the public health nurse position. And that's still good for another, we're about 6 or 8 months into that. So, just over 2 years left of that contract. And we're all 6 out of the 7 of the towns that are in this regional would love to continue that further from there. So we're hoping to keep her on for more than that 2.5 years. As far as the other duties that the public health nurse does, the public health nurse, well, it depends on who you have. the nurse that I had prior to the most recent, I had Donna Palmer, who was just, she's a machine. She was a machine. She made sure that she was always busy. If something was slow, she would get into public outreach with other areas of town, community outreach, and she just put her all into it. That's the other tough part about it with the low pay is, they don't really want to put much more than they have to with the pay the way it is. But when you get the older generation, I should say, they put a little bit more pride into things, I guess. I just say that I think that as long as Spire can help us with vaccines, and we've got our regional epi, we probably will be able to survive. We could do the more public outreach on our own.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cody.
Chris, question on the salary being 40,000. Obviously, that's, as far as I know, extremely low for a nurse. What's the nature of the scope of duties for the nurse, and is it something that could be done on a part-time basis by a nurse that's works somewhere else and can run 3 days a week or something for us?
That is part-time, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's $31 an hour for 25 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see where we could go much more than the 25 hours right now.
And it's hard to find somebody that's, like you said, it's a very specific type of person that's looking for that kind of gig and is happy with 25 hours-ish and that amount of money.
Yeah, the hope would be someone that might be burnt out a little bit and just wants to work part-time and work the hours that kids are in school or something like that.
Sure.
And you're keeping it at 25 to keep from getting into full-time and benefits and all that type of stuff.
Well, 25 would be benefits. They would be benefit eligible. Anything over 20.
It's more of a workload thing for the hours. But if we had somebody that came in that was very energetic, and I can only hope that would happen. We would be coming back to you to get an increase on those hours. But until then, that's what Donna was working at 25 hours, and the amount of work she was able to get done was amazing.
So if we were able to fill that position at the 40,000, where do the benefits get picked up in the budget?
That would be part of the fixed and shared expenses.
And is that allocated in the budget currently, or are you taking account that this is a vacant position?
The town treasurer collector always leaves some extra room in case someone that's not on insurance decides to get on insurance. Anywhere from like 6 to 10 plans on 6 to 10 family plans a year, just in case a single changes to a family or someone that's not on gets on, or if we have a new hire.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions for Chris? More questions?
If I could just take the moment now to, I guess I'll be like everybody else and talk about our capital requests that we had. So back in 2016, I was able to acquire 4 electric vehicles for the town through a grant, and worked out very well financially, and over the years they've been quite a benefit. The issue that we've had with those vehicles is the ground clearance and the fact that they're front wheel drive, not full wheel, excuse me. And so, and we've also had a couple of them that were, I've got one that's been at the dealership since October, waiting on the right parts to fix it. So I put a request in for 3 small SUVs for my department, the building commissioner, and the conservation agent. And that would, my intentions are to put at least 2 of the electric vehicles, the ones that are giving us the most trouble, as well as the current conservation agent and building commissioner vehicles up for auction to help pay back some of this money. But I think the total estimate for the 3 vehicles that I received, Mike, let's see if I can pull it up on my. What's that number?
It is $128,155.
And that does not include any money paid back from the auction of the 4 vehicles that would be sent out for auction. So it'll be bringing in 3 and getting rid of 4.
Any idea what they're worth at their current state?
I would say the 2 volts that would go would probably be in the range of 15,000 a piece. So there's 30, and then the Explorer that Nick is driving is probably in the range of about maybe 10. And then the pickup truck for conservation, probably not so much, but they've been having a lot of good luck with the auction right now. I was talking to the accountant, and it seems as though they're doing better with the auction as opposed to trade-ins. So that's kind of why we're looking in that direction. They were able to get, $10,000 for a ex-police cruiser that probably shouldn't have got $10,000.
Right.
But, if they
Needed
can.
$5,000 worth of work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but we'll take advantage of that. So at this point, we're probably looking at, maybe 40 to 50,000, hopefully in auction money returning.
That'd be good news.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Chris, are these gonna be electric? Continue the trend? Are they gonna be electric, SUVs?
They're not, but they're not electric, but what they are is they fall under the,
Green
Green
community.
Communities vehicle guidelines. So we will still have the fuel efficiency for green communities, so we will not lose our status as far as being a green community. Electric vehicles are very, very hard to come by right now. The thing about electric vehicles is their availability is like, you have to have the money and be ready to go when they call you. And unfortunately with town, it doesn't work that way. The approval process takes months. So I've had a couple of them call me and say, hey, I've got an F-150 Lightning, you want it? Well, yeah, I would, but can't get it right now. So we have to kind of go with availability the way things are.
And Chris, I know you mentioned Donna Palmer. Good luck finding a replacement for her. She was a gem.
Not gonna happen.
No, she was a gem.
Yep.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Chris, this is probably a weird question, but I understand ground clearance issues for conservation and building inspection, but for the health, for the third one, what do you see as the ground clearance issues? Why couldn't we just go with a small?
Well, I'm on a lot, believe it or not, a lot of Nick's projects can't happen until I've said, okay. So,
okay.
Yeah, with the septic and the wells and everything else that gets done on the sites, I'm out there just as, almost as much as Nick is, with new construction, whether it's commercial or residential.
Okay, I'm just showing my ignorance of not knowing exactly what you do.
No, that's okay, that's fine.
I thought you were gonna suggest that they carpool.
No.
That wasn't it? All right, good.
You don't want to see us in the same car, it's not cute.
We do. It's actually pretty
In a
impressive.
Volt, which is about this big.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest an Uber.
I don't know if you can find one of those in Norton, maybe Attleboro.
Additional fees though, Zach, right?
Yeah, we don't want to add up the fees.
Surge pricing. Anything else? As
Thank
an
you,
old
guys.
friend would say, seeing the lateness of the hour.
And one other
Forward.
for Chris is landfill.
Landfill, yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the landfill.
It's easy to forget.
I was trying to get you out of here, but Mike ruined it.
It's all right.
So the landfill, this is the state mandate that we have to maintain the landfill, and not that we don't want to, but you'll see that from the last budgeted amount to the current, it's gone up about 6,000. The reason for that is we are mandated annually to do the gas monitoring, but biannually we have to do groundwater monitoring. So we are up this coming fiscal year to do the groundwater as well. And then next year we'll see it go back down again. So it's just the way it is, right? We're trying to, it used to be that we had to do them both, but now we're able to get them on the biannual schedule for the groundwater. And we're trying to get that spread out even more if we can, just to offset some of this. The cost is getting higher and higher every year. But so the quote this year was actually just under the 14,000, and I put in 14,000 just to have some contingency funds in there.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody, go ahead.
is this for the landfill that's down off of Dean Street? The old one that?
It's Hill Street.
Hill Street.
This is Hill Street. It's actually got a solar farm on it now.
Okay.
Who has other questions about the landfill?
Do we
Madam
get
Chair?
a-
Yes, Sandy? Go
Just a
ahead.
quick question, it's a quick question. I see the transferred FY 22 budget. What was the expended for FY 22? Do you know what that was off the top of your head, or?
It was just under, I think. I don't know if it's perfect, I don't know exact number, but I would say it was around the 7,800 area.
Okay, thank you.
76 to 7,800, just like the 21.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody, go ahead.
just a question on that, the solar farm that's on the landfill. Presumably we get a lease payment or something off of that, Mike?
Yeah, we get an $80,000 a year lease payment, and in solar credits, we're averaging like close to 300,000 a year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well,
I think
thanks
we
for
might
having
be
me.
done with you. Yes, thanks for coming. Thanks for sticking it out to the late night FinCom
No worries.
hour. We appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. And Nick stuck by you. He stayed to see your presentation, support you. We like to see that.
True friend.
Although now he's going to probably sit you down at lunch tomorrow and critique you on it. So be aware of that.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too. Mike, you don't have anything else for us, do you?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, we just have a couple things to cover. One is that we typically meet on Mondays, so we don't exactly have all of the, we won't have the agenda for an upcoming meeting until typically a few days before. And that Michelle sends that to us and all the materials associated with that meeting, usually the Thursday or Friday prior to the Monday. So you can expect that in your town email account. We do have, as all of you saw with the flurry of emails at the end of last week, we do have the joint meeting with the school committee and select board in person at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 14th next week. So we will see each other again before then on Monday, but just so you all have it on your radar, it has been solidified that it is that date, and that will be at the Norton Middle School library on the second floor if you haven't been there before. And we also wanted to just have a conversation because the question was posed to me about whether or not we wanted to have in-person, hybrid, or remote meetings. And as we are an 11-member board, and we had not yet met for the season, budget season, I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to weigh in with their opinion on that. And then I figured that we could take a vote to determine what our meetings will look like going forward. So Tuesday's meeting is in person. but our own meetings, where we're not having a joint meeting, we would be able to decide for ourselves. So I will open up for any discussion or opinions or anything that people want to share about that. Yes, Cody.
Question on next Tuesday on solo dating for that night. Is there going to be a remote? Like, is there going to be a Zoom option for that meeting as well?
I'm not sure. We don't have a great track record with that, which may come up in this discussion that's coming up next. So I'm not sure that will be an option. I can check to see with Nor Media, who I see is on here, but I don't know if they can weigh in, whether or not that's possible. I couldn't answer that right now.
I mean, Super FunCon last year was on Zoom. I remember attending.
Yeah. Right. We did things differently way back when. You're welcome to bring them too. It's so educational. I think Corley and what's your son's name? Sorry.
Holden
would really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's right at their bedtime.
We needed entertainment.
Or they'll be asleep by the time the meeting's over, and then you just transfer them to bed. You're all good.
Right.
Gotta be there.
Great, Peter. Any comments about in-person, hybrid, remote meetings?
Personally, I'm great with in-person or remote, but as you mentioned, our track record with hybrid is abysmal and is far more difficult than it's just way too inefficient, let's put it that way. So I would not be in favor of hybrid, but I'm okay with either of the others.
Madam Chair, I agree with Joe, sorry. The hybrid did not work for our group when we tried it a couple times. I'm all for either in-person or fully remote. However, my worry with in-person is making sure we have a quorum. I feel like that's been a concern in the past. And also meeting space, making sure we have proper meeting space that accommodates our 11-person board and any guests that we have. And anyone from the public who may want to come to our meetings. So I guess those would be questions for Mike about the location, but yeah, worrying about a quorum, making sure that, a lot of the folks here on this finance committee were not here back in the day when we used to meet in person all the time. So they've become accustomed and joined the board, knowing it was fully remote and making sure they would still be able to attend.
Yes, they've not had the pleasure of being on stage in the back of the town hall, listening to other meetings upstairs. Unfortunately,
feels like forever ago.
It does. Paul, were you jumping
Madam
in?
Chair?
I was basically gonna say almost the same thing as Paula. This is my first meeting and I was surprised how well it went on the full remote. I think it was very well handled and so I could go either way.
Thank you so much, Paul.
No problem.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Bill.
I think one of the advantages of remote is we actually get the information early versus when we were in person, you sat down and you were seeing it for the first time. To me, that kind of makes a difference, that you're a little more knowledgeable going into the meeting versus trying to listen, trying to read, trying to form questions.
Yeah. Well, I would say, speaking as in my role currently as the chair, that I would expect that we would continue to receive the materials ahead of time, because that is something that even when we were meeting in person, we were trying to move towards, because none of us felt comfortable with what you just described. So hopefully that wouldn't become an issue again. Now that it's become a habit, I hope that we can continue to receive our materials ahead of time.
But then you have you're almost wasting paper and money by printing them out, because you're going to print them out because not all of us are going to have devices in person, so now you're going to need the paper copies. I think remote just makes it easier.
Yes, I'm going to ask to be reimbursed for printing mine out at home personally per page. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
I just think, well, couple things. I think every board in town at this point is in person. I don't know of any that are doing the remote anymore. I think everybody's gone back to normal. I think it's more effective, to be honestly, and normal. And from what I understand, the emergency order expires next month, whether it's going to be extended or not. We may be forced into in-person come next month. Who knows? It's still at the State House. So I would say, for me, I would like to see it back in person, even though I've never been since I've been on this board in almost 3 years now.
We've never met any of us, actually.
In person, never had a
sad.
meeting.
So sad.
Never had a finance committee meeting in person.
Well, they're riveting. They're
Yes.
even more riveting than tonight. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
I'm sure, I know several of us have children, and two working parents, and I can tell you next week, my wife is traveling and she's at a conference, so I'm single dad for so Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'm on my own. So remote works a lot better, and the commute time for virtual meetings is the 15 stairs down to my basement. And I particularly like this is where I do my work full time from home anyways, and I've got 2 screens, and I can put the screens up, and I can take notes, and I can do all that stuff. I don't have any way to do any of that stuff electronically, to have all of the stuff out, so it would require printing out, and me personally, I find this a lot easier to do it remote.
Gotcha. Maybe some of us with older kids, Sandy, Paula, we can farm out them to care for your younger kids.
You have to run the FinCom daycare.
Well, yeah, we can put them all in a room and just lock it and see what happens.
Well,
No,
Cody,
I understand what you're saying.
treasure every moment, though. They grow up fast. I miss the little kids, Madam Chair, I don't know if Mike's still actually on, but Zach had an interesting point. Are we only allowed to meet remotely because of the emergency order, or could we continue after that?
I don't know the answer to that. So, I could say that if we do make a decision tonight, I'm open to, we make a decision for 1 more week. I'm open to, we make a decision until we are told otherwise. Obviously, if we decide to meet remotely and then we're told that we can't, we will have to revisit it. It's not going to be, our rule of law does not supersede the state's. So I don't know the answer to that. Mike has reappeared and may have the answer.
Well, I think next week I would continue to do remote, and Bonnie, in the meantime, we should investigate locations that we can meet.
Given what other boards are meeting that night, and
when we're not rushed, it give us time to investigate that in case the state does come back and say you have to meet in person.
I'm good with that.
I remember back on March 11th, 2020, when we were all sitting in Gibbert at the Media Center for the FinCom meeting at the start of the state of emergency. I remember that day.
I do too, and I remember Amy had wipes, and she was wiping down the table, and I was like, "What's wrong with this one?" And she was clearly the smartest one among us.
Bill, you remember saying to me, and said, "What is the contingency plans if stuff like this is told not to happen anymore?"
So it sounds like we have a plan for next week, because we don't yet know about our space availability around town. Do we want to just table this then until we can look into it this week and then make a decision later? Or would folks like to decide now, basically weigh in on your opinion now, because it may be a non-issue? Yes, Cody.
I was going to just suggest, we can take the vote now, and if the state tells us we have to go in person, then if we all vote, or majority of us vote to stay remote, and then the state tells us we have to go in person, then the vote is moot.
Until it's out of our hands.
And I think that it does still make sense for you and Mike to investigate locations.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we need to know what's,
That the state does come back and say it has to be all in person again.
yeah, I agree with you.
And I'll check with the library to see whether Monday nights or Wednesday nights, when the library is available, and then I'll check with the cable studio.
So, Madam Chair, is it every Monday night going forward, or is it every other Monday, or how's it work as far
So
as?
it's typically every Monday, unless it's not. No, it's typically every Monday. We don't meet on Patriots Day night. We typically meet that Wednesday. And then at a certain point, the warrant is closed. So we don't meet anymore, even though we haven't yet had town meeting. But it also depends on, there's sometimes when we've had towards the end of the process, we've needed to have 2 meetings in a week, Monday and Wednesday, because we need to get everything finished and voted and sort of I's dotted and T's crossed before the warrant closes. So we'll see. But mostly it's Monday nights.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so I think I know which way this is headed, but I'm going to ask for everyone's vote on it, just so we sort of have it on the record. Kevin, you're still here. Thank you for staying. I thought you had to leave. So you're up first. I'm taking a vote as to, and this is obviously unofficial, we don't need to use normal terminology that we typically do, as to whether you prefer to be remote, in person, or hybrid.
Is my mic working yet?
It is.
All right, that's a good start. Yeah, my kids finally stopped screaming in the background, so I was able to stay on a little later. I'd probably vote in person.
Okay. Paula?
Oh, remote. Thank you.
Steve is not here. Trace?
Remote.
Sorry, Tracy Mahan, is it?
Yes.
Remote. Gotcha. Sandy?
In person?
Oh, maybe I was wrong. Joe?
I'm going to say remote.
Bill?
Remote.
Shocking turn of events. Okay. Paul?
A remote.
Cody?
Remote.
And Zach?
In person.
All right, for in person, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, no, sorry. 1, 2, 3. And remote 7. So I won't bother voting, but that at least determines it for now. And like we said, we planned to meet next week anyway. Oh, Peter, did you count for me?
Yes. Yes.
And what'd you get?
In person 3 and remote 7.
Thank you. You got it. That's right. So until the state tells us otherwise, we'll plan on remote. But like I said, next Tuesday's meeting is in person.
Madam Chair, can I ask about minutes in terms of, do we have someone taking minutes to catch us up?
Good question, Mike.
Yeah. Anne that works in the Veterans Office is working to get caught up, and she'll be doing these minutes also.
Is that Ann Simpson?
Yes.
Ah, great. Okay. The only other date I wanted to throw out there for all of our many viewers is town meeting date, which is Monday, May 15th. Mark your calendars.
May 15th, mark your calendars.
That's right. At the high school in the auditorium. And check your town email for your materials for next week. Anything else, Mike?
Nope.
Any other business to come before the board? Hearing none. And seeing the lateness of the hour, as I said earlier, we like to throw back to our friend, Tom.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Great.
Second.
Ann's gonna have to figure that one out. I have a motion and a second, so I will take a roll call vote to adjourn. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Trace,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. It is 9:25. It was lovely to see you all. But
Thank you very
now-
much, Bonnie and the
It's
gang.
good
I hope you all have a good night.
Good night, Peter. Thanks for coming.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks.